Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to explore this fascinating connection between your gut, your stress levels, and your body's internal clock.
Mm.
Buckle up, folks, because we're going to uncover how those trillions of microorganisms living in your gut can affect how you react to stress at different times of the day.
Really interesting stuff.
Our guide for this deep dive is a research article titled Gut Microbiota Regulates Stress Responsivity via the Circadian System, published in Cell Metabolism just last week.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
So this research is really exciting because it shows just how deeply intertwined your gut and brain really are when it comes to stress.
Yeah, we tend to think of stress as something that's all in our heads, but this research shows that our gut actually has a starring role.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to understand that your gut microbiome, that vast community of bacteria living in your digestive system, isn't static.
Right.
It actually goes through its own daily cycles,
Like what?
almost like it has its own internal clock.
A microbial clock. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, it is a pretty recent discovery.
Wow.
And what's really fascinating is that this microbial clock is actually in sync with your body's overall circadian rhythm. That master clock that regulates our sleep-wake cycles, hormone production, and so much more.
Okay, so our gut bacteria are on a schedule just like we are. But what does that have to do with stress?
Well, the researchers found that disrupting this microbial clock in mice had a pretty profound impact on their stress response.
Okay.
Specifically, they focused on corticosterone, which is essentially the mouse version of the stress hormone cortisol.
So messing with the gut bacteria messed with their stress hormones? How did they even do that?
Yeah, well, they used a couple of different approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Some mice were raised in these completely germ-free environments, essentially,
Okay.
without any gut bacteria at all.
Oh, wow.
And then others were given antibiotics to disrupt their existing microbiome.
Wow, that's pretty drastic. So what happened to their stress hormones?
Well, in both cases, the mice's normal daily rhythm of corticosterone was thrown off. The germ-free mice, for example, had their peak corticosterone levels shift to their nighttime, which is the opposite of their normal pattern.
So instead of having their stress hormones naturally rise during the day when they're most active, these mice were getting stressed out at night. That sounds pretty disruptive.
Exactly. And the mice that were treated with antibiotics showed a different but equally significant shift. Their peak corticosterone levels were exaggerated at a specific time point, leading to a much stronger stress response than usual.
So both approaches messed with the timing and intensity of the stress response. It really highlights how sensitive our bodies are to even subtle changes in our gut microbiome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the researchers didn't stop there.
Oh,
They wanted to understand how these microbial shifts were actually affecting the stress response.
okay.
And what they discovered is that the gut microbiome actually communicates with specific regions in the brain that are involved in both stress and the circadian clock.
So our gut is actually talking to our brain. It seems like we're uncovering this whole hidden communication network within our bodies.
It is a great way to put it.
Mm.
One of the key players in this communication is the HPA axis, or the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Okay.
This is a complex system that regulates your stress response, releasing hormones like cortisol to help you deal with challenges.
Okay, the HPA axis, got it. So how does the gut microbiome actually influence this system?
Well, the study found that disruptions in the gut microbiome led to changes in the activity of certain brain regions
Okay.
that are connected to the HPA axis, including the SCN, the hippocampus, and the amygdala.
Those are some pretty important brain areas. The SCN is our master clock.
Yeah.
The hippocampus is crucial for memory and learning. And the amygdala is all about processing emotions like fear.
Exactly. And the researchers found that these microbial shifts specifically disrupted the rhythm of stress-related pathways in these regions.
Oh, wow.
They even discovered changes in the metabolism of glutamate, a neurotransmitter that plays a role in the stress response.
So messing with the gut bacteria can have this ripple effect impacting not just our hormones, but the very way our brains respond to stress. This is getting pretty deep.
It is. But what's really remarkable is that the researchers were able to dig even deeper, uncovering how the timing of these microbial shifts actually mattered.
So it's not just about having the right gut bacteria, it's also about them being active at the right time.
That's what the research suggests. In fact, one of the most intriguing findings was the discovery of a single bacterial strain, Lactobacillus reuteri.
Wow, what a name.
Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast.
I know, right?
But anyway, this strain seemed to play a particularly important role in modulating the stress response in a time-of-day dependent manner.
Wait, Lactobacillus reuteri, doesn't that sound familiar?
It might.
Yeah.
Lactobacillus reuteri is the type of lactobacillus,
Right.
the genus of bacteria that's commonly found in probiotics.
Uh-huh.
You might have even seen it listed on the label of your yogurt or supplement.
So one of the good bacteria, the kind we're trying to cultivate in our gut, can actually influence our stress levels depending on when it's most active. That's mind-blowing.
It is, and it opens up a whole new avenue for understanding and potentially managing stress through targeted interventions.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to harness the power of our microbial clock to promote resilience and well-being.
That's an exciting thought. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's dig into how the researchers actually discovered this time of day effect. What did they do to figure this out?
Well, that's where things get even more fascinating. They actually used a technique called fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT for short.
Fecal transplants. Now that sounds pretty intense.
It is a very unique approach, but it's incredibly valuable for researchers studying the microbiome. Essentially what they do is they transfer gut bacteria from one mouse to another to see how it affects the recipient's health.
Okay, so they're basically giving mice gut makeovers. What did they learn from doing this?
They found that the timing of the bacterial collection actually influenced the recipient's corticosterone levels. In other words, transferring bacteria collected at a specific time of day had a different effect than transferring bacteria collected at another time.
So it's like the bacteria carry a timestamp.
Precisely. And that timestamp seems to be linked to the donor's circadian rhythm, suggesting that the recipient's stress response can be influenced by the timing of the donor's microbial activity.
Okay, that's truly mind-boggling. So not only do our own gut bacteria have their own internal clock, but they can also pass on information about that clock to other individuals through fecal transplants. It's getting pretty sci-fi.
It is, but it also highlights just how interconnected we are, not only with our own microbiome, but potentially with the microbiomes of others. And it all comes back to this intricate dance between our gut, our brain, and our body's natural rhythms.
This deep dive is already making me think about my gut bacteria in a whole new light. But before we get lost in the intricacies of fecal transplants and time-traveling microbes, let's zoom out for a second. What are the big picture implications of this research? Why should we care about the timing of our gut bacteria?
That's a great question. One of the most significant implications is that it opens up possibilities for targeted probiotic interventions. We might be able to develop probiotics that are specifically designed to be taken at certain times of day to optimize their effectiveness in managing stress.
So instead of just taking a probiotic whenever we might be able to fine-tune our approach based on our own circadian rhythms and stress patterns, that's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah.
But it also raises some interesting questions about how our modern lifestyles might be impacting the delicate balance of our gut microbiome and, in turn, our stress response.
Okay, now that's a conversation I'm definitely interested in having. What kind of lifestyle factors are we talking about here?
Well, think about things like irregular sleep schedules, exposure to artificial light at night, even the timing of our meals. All of these can disrupt our circadian rhythms,
Right.
which, as we've learned, are very closely intertwined with the rhythms of our gut bacteria.
So our modern world, with its 247 demands and constant connectivity, might be throwing our gut bacteria out of whack, making us more susceptible to stress. It's like a vicious cycle.
Exactly.
Ugh.
And that's why this research is so timely. It gives us a new lens through which to understand the impact of our modern lifestyles on our mental and emotional well-being.
It really underscores the importance of prioritizing those foundational elements of health, good sleep, regular meal times, and minimizing exposure to those bright screens before bed.
Absolutely. It's about getting back in sync with our natural rhythms, both internally and externally.
Okay.
But let's go back to the research for a moment.
Yeah.
There's another fascinating layer to this story that I think you'll find intriguing.
Okay, I'm all ears. What else did they discover?
You remember the blood-brain barrier?
Uh-huh.
It's that protective shield that surrounds our brains,
Right.
keeping out potentially harmful substances.
Right. It's like a bouncer for the brain, making sure only the VIPs get in.
Exactly. Well, the study found evidence that disrupting the gut microbiome can actually compromise the integrity of the blood-brain barrier
Really?
in a time-of-day dependent way.
Wait, so if my gut bacteria are out of sync,
Yeah.
my blood-brain barrier could become weaker, leaving my brain more vulnerable. And this is happening differently depending on the time of day.
That's what the research suggests. It adds a whole new level of complexity to the gut-brain connection.
Okay, now that's a bit unsettling. So it's not just about what our gut bacteria are producing, it's also about how much access they have to our brains.
Precisely. It's like realizing that the security system at your house might be weaker at certain times of day.
Right.
Makes you think twice about who you let in.
It definitely makes you appreciate the importance of maintaining a healthy and balanced gut microbiome.
Absolutely. But we're not just talking about abstract changes in hormones and brain regions.
Yeah.
This research also looked at how these microbial shifts actually played out in the mice's behavior.
So did these gut disruptions make the mice act differently?
They did. The researchers exposed the mice to various stressful situations at different times of day and observed their behavior. And they found that the mice with disrupted microbiomes showed altered responses to stress,
Okay.
particularly when they were stressed at a time when their corticosterone levels were already elevated.
So the timing of the stress combined with the state of their gut bacteria really mattered. It's like they were primed to overreact to stress at certain times.
That's a great way to put it. And the behavioral changes were quite specific. For example, they observed reduced social interaction in the mice with disrupted microbiomes.
That's really interesting. We often think of social behavior as being driven by our personality or our mood. But this suggests that even our gut bacteria can play a role.
It's a powerful reminder that our behavior is influenced by a very complex interplay of factors, including our biology, our environment, and, yes, even our gut microbes.
So imagine feeling more socially anxious at certain times of day because your gut bacteria are having a party. It really makes you wonder about all the subtle ways our microbiome might be shaping our experiences.
It's a fascinating area of research, and we're only beginning to scratch the surface.
Yeah.
But let's focus on the positive. If messing with the gut microbiome can worsen stress responses, can restoring it make things better?
That's the million-dollar question. What did they find?
Well, remember those fecal microbiota transplants?
Yeah.
The researchers used them not only to disrupt the microbiome, but also to try to restore it.
So they were giving some mice a healthy dose of gut bacteria from other mice.
Exactly. And what they found was that transferring gut bacteria from healthy mice to those with disrupted microbiomes could actually shift those corticosterone levels back towards a normal rhythm.
So it's like hitting the reset button on their stress response. That's really encouraging.
It is. But remember, the timing of those transplants mattered.
Right.
Transferring bacteria collected at a specific time point led to a greater shift in the recipient's corticosterone levels compared to transferring bacteria collected at a different time.
It's like those gut bacteria carry a schedule, and when you transfer them, you're also transferring that schedule.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that reinforces the idea that we might be able to harness the power of the microbial clock to optimize interventions.
Right.
But here's where things get really exciting.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the exciting part?
Remember that special bacterial strain, Lamosilactobacillus reuteri? In a separate experiment, the researchers gavaged mice with this specific species.
Gavaged? What does that mean?
It's essentially a way to directly deliver a substance into the stomach.
Okay.
So they gave the mice a dose of this L. reuteri, and guess what? It led to an increase in their corticosterone levels, but only when administered at a specific time of day.
So a single bacterial strain given at the right time could influence a key stress hormone. That opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Exactly. Imagine being able to develop targeted probiotic treatments that are synchronized with our circadian rhythms. We could potentially enhance our resilience to stress by taking the right probiotics at the right times.
It's like personalized stress management powered by our gut bacteria. That's a future I can get behind.
It's a future worth exploring. But this research also highlighted something else that's really crucial. It's not just about finding the right bacteria. It's about fostering a diverse and balanced gut microbiome overall.
So it's not just about adding in the good guys. It's about creating a thriving ecosystem where they can flourish.
Exactly. And that brings us back to those lifestyle factors we were discussing earlier. Things like diet, sleep, stress management, and even exposure to nature can all influence the composition and diversity of our gut microbiome.
So we can support our stress response, not just by taking the right probiotics, but by creating an environment where our gut bacteria can thrive. It's a holistic approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing that we are complex ecosystems constantly interacting with the trillions of microorganisms that call our bodies home.
This deep dive has definitely given me a newfound appreciation for those tiny but mighty microbes. But we're running out of time for this episode. Is there anything else you think we should cover before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground already, but I'm curious to know what you think are the biggest takeaways from this research. What should our listeners be mulling over after this deep dive?
Well, that's a great question. I think one of the most significant takeaways is that, We're only beginning to understand the profound influence of the gut microbiome on our health and well-being, particularly when it comes to stress.
Yeah.
For a long time, we've thought of stress as primarily a psychological phenomenon.
Right.
But now we're starting to see that it's also very deeply rooted in our biology, and specifically in this intricate interplay between our gut, our brain, and our circadian rhythms. It's like we've discovered this whole new layer of complexity to the stress response. It's not just about our thoughts and emotions, it's also about the trillions of tiny organisms living in our gut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's even more fascinating is that this research highlights the importance of timing. It's not just about having a healthy gut microbiome. It's about having a microbiome that's in sync with our body's natural rhythms.
It's like our gut bacteria are playing a symphony, and when the timing is off, the whole orchestra falls apart.
I love that analogy. And it makes you wonder, how our modern lifestyles with their irregular schedules and constant disruptions might be impacting that delicate symphony.
Right, we're constantly bombarded with messages about the importance of gut health.
Uh-huh.
But this research suggests that we need to be thinking not just about what we're feeding our gut bacteria, but also about when we're feeding them.
Yeah.
And how those feeding patterns align with our own internal clocks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to the importance of those foundational lifestyle practices. Prioritizing sleep, establishing regular meal times, managing stress, and even getting out in nature. All of these can contribute to a more balanced and harmonious gut microbiome.
It's a holistic approach to stress management, recognizing that our well-being is deeply intertwined with the well-being of our gut bacteria.
Exactly. And, this research opens up so many exciting possibilities for the future. Imagine being able to personalize our approach to stress management based on the unique composition and rhythms of our gut microbiome. We might even be able to develop targeted probiotic interventions
Wow.
that are synchronized with our circadian rhythms to enhance our resilience to stress.
It's like we're on the cusp of a whole new era of personalized medicine powered by our gut bacteria. That's pretty incredible.
It is. But even as we look ahead to these exciting possibilities, I think it's important to remember that we can already take steps to support a healthy gut microbiome and optimize our stress response.
What are some simple things our listeners can do today to start incorporating these insights into their life?
Well, one of the most powerful things you could do is simply become more aware of your body's natural rhythms. Pay attention to how you feel at different times of day.
Okay.
Notice when your energy levels naturally rise and fall, and try to align your activities and meal times with those natural rhythms as much as possible.
It's about listening to our bodies and working with our natural rhythms rather than against them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And beyond that, there are so many other things you can do to support your gut health, such as eating a diverse diet, rich in fiber, getting enough sleep, managing stress through practices like mindfulness or meditation, and spending time in nature.
Yeah.
All of these can contribute to a thriving gut ecosystem, which, as we've learned, can have a profound impact on your stress response and overall well-being.
It's a reminder that we are complex ecosystems constantly interacting with the world around us and with the trillions of microorganisms that call our bodies home. And when we take care of our gut, we're not just taking care of our digestion, we're taking care of our minds, our emotions, and our overall resilience to stress.
Beautifully said. This research is a powerful reminder that we are not just individuals, we are communities. And the more we learn about the intricate connections within those communities, the more empowered we become to create a life of balance, harmony, and well-being.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about, and I'm feeling inspired to make some changes to support my gut health and my overall resilience. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us and for guiding us through this fascinating research.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, the journey of discovery never ends. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the amazing world within.
And that's it for this week's deep dive. We'll see you next time.